Well, hello everyone. So now that I've been, more or less finished with the state manager, I've had a chance to get back to working on levels, and one of the first things I wanted to do was come back to this one that I actually showed way back in my very first devlog. So this has been on the to-do list for a while, and originally I wasn't too happy with this level. Kind of the attitude I've taken with this is to just sketch a bunch out and play through them, and if I like them I'll polish them, and if I don't like them I can always throw them out. And the way I've done this, you can see in my palette here, I have just some sketching tiles. I'll zoom in on it right here, and you can see if I go through a couple of my earlier levels here, you can see this one's kind of sketched out. So it's just very, very basic terrain, so I can see how things move around in. And this was the level that more or less prompted revising the state manager, because in theory I thought it'd be a fun level, but I just didn't have the control over the character that I wanted. So I'm going to give you a tour of this level and talk about some of the things I've learned about level design. As confident as I am with programming problems, I'm probably that much not confident about level design, so I'm kind of learning this as I go along here, but I'm pretty happy with what I've come up with. I also want to talk very briefly about a bug and a little bit about bug hunting, but probably something that I learned, I guess, the hard way, so I'm going to share that, and maybe you can learn from my experience the easy way here. But yeah, this level, you can see in the terrain here, first of all, I've polished this up quite a bit more, so you can kind of see this is more or less going to be the final design. Of course, you can't see the sky in the background. But the way this works is there is a lot of one-way platforms. So that was one aspect of character control I had to get down really well, is moving on platforms. It's a little rough around the edges still, but it works for the most part. The sachet move I'll show in a moment doesn't quite work very well on the hills, and that actually does create a problem. I need to give Marika one more ability. I would like her to have some kind of a somersault. I think that would help a lot with the knife guys in particular, because what happens is once they start throwing knives, it's really hard to advance on them. But giving her that move would make it a little bit easier to, maneuver through some of these tight spots. This is level, well, you can see in the tab, Act 2. Acts are the different points in the map. Each act has 2 or 3 levels, and then each scene is a particular room. And this is one of the few levels that's almost all one big scene. I mean, here you can see, this goes pretty far. I forgot exactly how wide it is. Of course, I can tell you, 256 tiles. So that's pretty wide. That's actually always been one thing that's kind of surprised me when, old games I grew up with in particular, if I go to some website where someone's captured the whole level and look at it, it always looks a lot smaller than it looks in the actual game. Of course, in the actual game, you're only seeing, that much at a time. So the level is quite a bit, it looks quite a bit bigger from the inside than it does from the outside. And I guess the same is true of houses too. Every now and then I'll see where someone's torn down a house to its foundation. They always look really tiny. Of course, inside the building, it looks a lot larger. So the way I've set this up, and by the way, I will have an NPC that will explain this to the player. So this is something that they'll get as a hint. But I set up these gems, like so, to kind of guide the player in the right direction. And that's one thing with, I've kind of set this up as a style guide where, if you get certain gems in a sequence, you get a little cool bonus. And the way I've set that up is you need to get all of the gems of a matching color. And I've kind of used these to try and guide the player really up to this point. And one of the hints the player is going to get at the beginning is to come up here first, and that is where the player will be introduced to the knife. So that will be the very first knife in the game, if they play Act 2 first. I guess there's no guarantee they will, nor is it required. But this is ideally going to be the level where the knife is introduced, and kind of the whole level is designed around using the knife to navigate. By the way, this door up here you cannot reach from the bottom. There is a secret, which I'll give away actually in this update. I'll give away how to get to that secret, but yeah, there is a secret room, and there's a gold, and gold is usually either hard to get or you need to, it's a secret to get. But coming back here now, you got the knife. So once the player has the knife, what they need to do is actually very similar to what they need to do in the high security compound, is to take out these turrets. And I'm thinking this may be the first level that has a mission. So I haven't quite decided for sure if I want this to be optional or required. But what I'm thinking is the player will need to, as an objective, eliminate all these turrets, and either it's required or they get a pretty sizable experience point bonus if they do this. Either way, what the player is going to be told to do is to look for these sensors. And if you take out these sensors, like you may, if you've seen my past videos, you've probably seen the high security compound. Very similar idea, of course. This, despite the fact this level is significantly less linear, which is actually one thing I really like about this. This is, I think, my first really non-linear, or maybe I shouldn't say completely non-linear, but mostly non-linear level, maybe half non-linear. But there's still plenty of guidance to take these things out. This one is actually a little bit of a surprise, and maybe I need to mark it as well, but of course I can always mark it through the NPC's comments. But then as the player makes their way to the right, you'll see these little warning signs here. There's one at the bottom of the screen, and there's one here. These warning signs are designating the range that these turrets can see you from. And the player will be told to make use of the scout ability. So ideally what they do is they stand at the base of these signs and then use scout to take out these turrets. And there's quite a few of them. Of course, there's also quite a few knives in the game too, or actually the game, this level. So there should be enough to take these out. You see, there's quite a few of them. So again, it's really meant to try and teach the player how to use the knife. And then in the high security compound, they're more on their own to figure out exactly how to use it. But here in this level, it's pretty much set up so that as you make your way to the right, here it's actually more linear. As you make your way to the right, you take these things out. Like here, there's a sign here that's buried, and it designates the range for these turrets. And the other thing I've set up too is that the turrets can see further and further ahead as you get to the right. Of course, here now I don't think there's any more turrets. There's a couple more guys. Okay, there's a couple more turrets, and there's a sign. And then the end will be through that door. So, as the second half is pretty linear, but I like this first half. I like the second half too. I like this first half where you kind of have to find your own way through these hills. So let me kind of show a little bit about what the gameplay of this level is going to look like. Oh, by the way, let me go back to this real quick. 2 more things to show off. First of all, there is a room here. And by the way, this little candy stripe thing here is a trigger. So when the player hits the trigger, it does something. In this case, you can see I set this up in the inspector. So it triggers the event sensor trigger in the door. And so the door has a behavior that listens for this event, and it, I guess, does what you would expect it to. It opens the door. There's still a couple bugs with the door that I'll point out, but they're things that, maybe I shouldn't call them bugs. There's just things I haven't finished yet. Also, there, hidden down here, by the way, there's a little hint. These gems form an arc that would continue down here, but there is a secret. And if you go through that door, it takes you to the gold coin. Now, one more thing I have to figure out is if you try to go back through this door, you'll end up back on this island. There's no way, up that island. So you really need to get down here where that knife is. Of course, if you jump, that's a far enough jump to, I don't think it'll kill you. You'll definitely take damage, and if you're trying to complete the level by taking no damage at all, that eliminates that bonus. So it's impossible to get a perfect rating on this level, which I don't like. I need to fix that. If you don't get the coin, you don't get the bonus points for the coin. If you do get the coin, you have to take damage to get out of that little ledge. So I need to figure out something to do. One thing I set up, and I might actually have to change my thinking here, but if you're inside this green box, you actually don't take fall damage. I'm not sure if I should keep that, because having exceptions to the rules, I think, will make it harder for the player to learn the rules. So there are a lot of things I can do. I can make a one-way elevator. I can put a little rope there or something. I don't know. I'll think of something. That shouldn't be too hard of a problem to solve. Okay, so let me go back to the game that I have loaded up here, and let's see if I can figure out how to play this with with my hands going around the microphone. So first of all, I think I have this. Yeah, I have this saved in the middle. Let me start over. Okay, so there's the construction site. That's the level I was just talking about. There's high security compound that will actually not be unlocked from the start. You'll have to do something to unlock these later levels. Okay, so what I can do here is make my way up these little thingies. Knock him off the edge. That makes me chuckle every time. I'm probably not going to keep that as a skill that you get for free, but while I have it, I'm going to take advantage of it. Okay, so I got the knife. So the first thing I need to start doing with the knife is to snipe. I think I started too early here. Start sniping these turrets. By the way, I changed this too. Uh-oh. Oh, it was supposed to blow up, and now I remember why it's not. Okay. We'll get back to that later. So I want to talk about, I forgot about debugging. Oh, I'll just do that. Okay, so you can see Scout's particularly, oops, I already messed that one up. Scout's particularly useful here. So I can stand here and, yeah, I'm out of range of its sight. Of course, those turrets won't blow up right now. See if I can get that one. Okay. Oops, well, not sure what I messed up there. I guess I forgot to hit the jump button. Anyway, let me tell you about the bug now. So, this was a hard one to figure out. I'm going to load a different save game that starts me in this room. So this room takes you to this scene. This is actually optional. That's another thing I like about this level is there's some optional challenges. I'm going to put a skill book here. So to get the skill book, you'll have to go up these elevators and to the left. And you can see I have these turrets here. You know, getting up the top is actually not that hard. What is particularly difficult is getting these 4 gems. And I have this set up so that there's a pretty sizable bonus if you get them all within 30 seconds. So that's actually much, much longer than I usually give the player to collect a whole group. That's a bonus of 6, and that's actually a pretty high bonus. I forgot what 6 is. I think it's like 3,200 points or something like that. At this stage in the game, that's quite a bit of experience. So it'll help the player afford some of those luxury skills. Actually, I made a new little floater too. You can see this. I have an awesome floater now, whereas before, go to utilities here. Not utilities, UI. I had a cool floater, and now I have an awesome floater. And that awesome floater has more colors too. So I don't know. I try to think of little things to really emphasize to the player, like, hey, you did something great. So that room. Let me point out the problem with that room. So I think it's this save game. Okay, so we're in this room here. Now this is really, really tough. Now, this is also the sort of thing that I think is going to be easier when the player has more skills. So right now at this early stage, this is pretty tough. Now, these turrets take 2 strikes from the axe to kill. So if you can kill all of them, you can actually get those 4 gems pretty easily. Of course, it's really tough to do that and stay on this platform. Oh, look at that, I did that. You can see the sachet doesn't work quite right. Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to celebrate by getting these things, because I earned this. There we go. Even, yeah, 3,200 points. That's a pretty good bonus. Oh, of course I took damage doing that. So anyway, what's the problem with this room? It's not so much in here. Yeah, I figured that was quicker. But when I come back in here, now you can see that those turret, I did not do that. I just tried to point at the screen with my finger. Let me get right here. So that these things are the sensors that you hit. You can see they're dead, but the turrets are still alive. You see they're actually, yeah, they're still firing. So let me walk you through the code sequence here. How does this work behind the scenes? So here's how this works. You can see I have a turret and I have a sensor. And let me get to the turret sensor first. I can remember where I put that. Yeah, it's right here. So the turret sensor has a trigger on die, and what this does is it sends out the event haywire to every behavior in the target. The turret has several behaviors. Let me pull up a turret here. I think that was a turret 4 that was in that level. So it has several behaviors, turret behavior, and of course animation point to player that actually does the tracking. So here's the haywire event, and that just sets a boolean. But what that boolean does is effectively, right there actually, it disables its ability to see the player and just makes it keep spinning forever. As you know, if you've seen my past videos, that happened a lot in the high security compound. So it effectively disables part of the AI routine in this turret that makes it react to the player. And I like to try and program these enemies this way, as if these were almost real world entities. Like if these were real world robots or whatever, how would they be engineered? And so this behavior is simulating part of the mechanics of this turret and more or less breaking it. Here's the problem. When the turret sensor dies, you can see trigger on die, it shouts out this event to the target, which in this case would be the turret. Now what happens, and I guess I just got lucky because in the high security compound this didn't happen, but in this level, because I placed these sensors before the turrets, what that means is as the scene is loading, when the scene loads, this sensor loads, the UID behavior says, hey, I have in my database that this was a killed actor. It kills that actor. That should trigger the haywire event, but because the turret has not yet loaded, then it doesn't do anything at all. Then the turret loads, but since the sensor has already been killed, the turret is still alive. So basically the bug is this. You don't necessarily want to make assumptions about the order that actors are loaded in. And in most cases, I can usually delay, killing actors or whatever by a frame. That guarantees everything is loaded. Then I can start, running through things. But in the case of UID, because I don't want the player to see something they've previously killed, even for a frame, that UID behavior has to kill the actor on the uncreated event. So basically the problem is I have to guarantee that the turret loads before the sensor, but just as a general design guide, I don't like to do things that depend on actor loading order. I'm fairly confident that the order that actors are loaded in is also the order you place them in the scene. I don't know that for sure, and because I don't know that for sure, I don't want to assume it. So I have to rethink the code here. So I thought about this in a variety of ways. I think the simple thing to do is just to kill the turret when you kill the sensor. So let me re-enable that. So I forgot, I disabled it for this demonstration. I'll re-enable that now. I could just use the UID system to save haywires instead of actor kills. UID right now only pretty much pertains to actor kills, but if I generalize it just as a general flag system, I could save things like this, and maybe that would be a project I should take on. But for now, I think it kind of makes more sense to kill the turret anyway, because if nothing else, give the player some points. Okay, so I could load that now. You can see if I go back through this door. Oh, I think what happened is I did not save that with the UID. In fact, actually, you know what? I also have to compile this game. I think that's actually the problem. I forgot to compile. But we'll load a fresh game. See, I generally don't like to compile things because, not much to do right now other than sit and watch this. That save file actually should work. We'll give it a try. Alright. So I should be able to go through this door now. Yeah, it's still doing that. Okay. Tell you what, we will... I think it's because the UID didn't save. Because I've more or less loaded a poisoned game. Here, we'll just go through this again. And I can show off this one more time. I have this down pretty well at least, so... Send him flying. Get these. Send him flying. Oh, here we go. Okay. I don't know how to handle this. Okay, so I'm going to snipe this one turret. We can watch it spin and... Okay, it blew up. Okay, now if this works, I should be able to come back in here. Yeah, there we go. So now, yeah, I think I just poisoned that one save file because I changed the UID system and it's no longer saving the correct UIDs. Oops. Yeah, I say some of the movements don't work quite correctly on the hills. I want to go back in there again, but I forgot I need to kill this thing. Yeah, I really messed this up, by the way. Okay. See, by the way, if I kill the turrets, then the player gets the points for them too, which, you know, I think they should get. Okay, good. So that fixed that problem. Okay. So, all seems to be well. So, that more or less wraps up this update. So, I'm hoping in the next one I will have started some new levels. But yeah, it feels pretty good to be done with that state manager. At least for the most part. Been fixing some bugs and other things. You can see motion is not quite perfect, but it's getting there. So, that pretty much wraps things up. Let me, you know, wish everyone happy holidays, you know, Merry Christmas, happy holidays, you know. Year's almost over. That's, I think, definitely a good thing. And probably have one more update before the end of the year, so we'll see how that goes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.